Representative Mo Brooks has an interesting idea about what might be causing rising sea levels. Now, he expressed this during an exchange with Philip Duffy, who is the president of Woods Hole Research Center and a former member of the Obama administration. Let's take a look.
In particular, Dr. Duffy, you said that they're going to be massive. Isn't that the word that you use in your remarks? Massive sea level rises. Don't you think if you're going to have that kind of statement, you ought to have some idea as to what all the causes of sea level rises have been?
Sure.
Since human beings have been on Earth?
If you're referring to ground subsidence, that is a factor in some regions.
Okay. What else? That's one. So now we've gotten two. What else?
Ground subsidence is not going to cause the levels of sea level rise that arouse my concern.
I'm just asking for factors. I was not asking for your prioritizing of one over the other. But you've mentioned two. What else?
Those are all that I know of.
What about erosion? Every single year that we're on Earth, you have huge tons of silt deposited by the Mississippi River, by the Amazon River, by the Nile, by every major river system, and for that matter, creek, all the way down to the smallest systems. And every time you have that soil or rock, or whatever it is that is deposited into the seas, that forces the sea levels to rise, because now you've got less space in those oceans because the bottom is moving up.
We've got less space in the oceans. I mean, look at all the runoff. Look at all this erosion, all the rocks that are falling in the water. I mean, for example, I mean the erosion, all the stuff going into the Mississippi River or the Nile. Now, it's funny how he talks about the Nile. In fact, we're going to talk about the Nile. Man, this guy is desperate to avoid talking about climate change, or even acknowledging the existence of climate change. Now, Duffy, of course, responded to this, and he said that he did not believe that this theory of rocks falling into the ocean and displacing the water would explain the high levels of sea level rise. He said, quote, "I'm pretty sure that on human timescales, those are minuscule effects." On human timescales, absolutely. Now, look, if you want to talk about geologic timescales, well, yeah, that can be a big factor in sea level rise, of course. But we're talking hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. And see, nobody wants to talk about those giant timescales when it comes to climate change, for example. Now, look, climate, as a lot of deniers will love to tell you, climate changes all the time. Oh, what are you talking about? I mean, the climate's always been changing. Well, that is true, right? It's gotten warmer. It's gotten colder. We've had ice ages. We've had very tropical warm ages where, you know, they're very high oceans. There actually wasn't a lot of ice in the north. But look, in those time spaces between those two extremes, those time spaces have included hundreds of thousands, as I said, millions of years in between them. So it takes quite a while to get from one to the other. Now, the problem here with climate change is that, look, since the Industrial Revolution, we have seen a very, very fast pace of change. Now, we've seen massive amounts of warming throughout the planet. Now, that is massive change in a very short amount of geologic time. Now, you might think, oh, 200-ish, 300 years. No, that's a long time for when it comes to human lifespans. But on geologic time, it's a very, very short time. So that's significant because that makes it harder for animals and plants to be able to adapt to those changes. Look, right now, the life on Earth is adapted to the climate that we basically have or had, I should say, since it has been getting warmer. They had adapted before it started getting warmer. So the problem is that we're having mass die-offs. We're having huge level extinction events for a lot of plants and animals. That is a very, very bad thing. That kind of change presents huge, huge challenges for biodiversity on Earth. If the climate changes too fast, we can't adapt to it, and we run the risk of destroying our own food chain. And you know what that leads to. Now, going back to sea level rise, where you add that in, well, that threatens coastal communities, right? First off, you have storms that are actually a little bit stronger with more warmer water that is used to fuel these stronger storms and create these stronger storms. More often, well, you're going to have more destruction of the coasts, and you're also going to end up having these areas get flooded as sea level rises. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that most of our population happens to live on the coasts. So you can see why that's a big problem. Now, that would cause, of course, if you flood those areas and make them uninhabitable, because they're underwater, even an inch, 2 inches, you can't live there. Well, you're going to have mass migrations away from the coastlines into the interior of the countries. So this is some of the problems that we're facing with climate change, and we should be absolutely worried. Now, Mo Brooks, however, he is not worried, because by the time all that happens, he'll likely be dead. And right now, he tends to be making a crap ton of money from the fossil fuel industry. So that's why he pushes ridiculous ideas like, oh, no, you don't understand. The Arctic sea ice is getting bigger. Oh, really? So that would be like, oh, no, we're global cooling. It's actually getting colder because I can go outside and get a snowball. That's not true. According to satellite records, there has been a documented shrinkage of the Antarctic ice sheet and an acceleration of that shrinkage. Why? Because it's getting warmer. And of course, warmer water expands, and the melting, of course, shrinks the ice sheets. So, but he does not care. He doesn't give a shit. That's why he can tweet out things like a Wall Street Journal op-ed that denied the role of climate change in playing the role climate change is playing in sea level rise. Now, it's funny because he basically said, there's nothing that we can do about this except build dikes and seawalls a little bit higher. Oh, so there's nothing we can do. I mean, how convenient. It spares both him and his donors any responsibility for reining in carbon emissions that are driving climate change. Because to him, climate change doesn't exist. And it's not an explanation as to why we're seeing sea level rise. Nothing we can do. Just rocks falling in the ocean, right? Build a bigger wall. What a coward. Again, here's the truth. It's pretty simple. Scientists aren't hiding it. They're talking about it. And in fact, I think they're being a little too conservative in their estimates, and they're not raising the alarm enough. And here's Mo Brooks saying, nothing we can do. Where's my check? Do I have my check from the oil industry yet? From the Koch brothers? Cowards. He is corrupt, and his ideas are dangerous. This is one reason why we have to get the money out of politics. As long as politicians can sit there and take legal bribes through our system, campaign contributions, independent expenditures, and then use that money to blanket airways with ads, then people like Mo Brooks will continue to win elections and, through their sheer cowardice, greed, and stupidity, doom us all. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.